I'm fresh out of beef jerky. So today, it's time to make some more, and I'm gonna be making some smoked beef jerky out on the electric smoker. So what we're working with today is about a 2.5 pound top round. You'll also see this in the store sold as London broil, but it's top round. Now I did a step-by-step beef jerky video some time back, so I'm not gonna run through every exact step, but this is still gonna be a pretty comprehensive video on how to do this. And the first thing we wanna do is we wanna trim this up to get the excess fat off of here. You'll see that there's a pretty large piece of fat going here. There's fat here, a little bit over here. You want as little fat in the meat as possible because fat can make the meat turn rancid after a while. So we're just gonna go ahead here and we're gonna cut along this line to get this entire vein of fat out. And we're gonna lose some of the meat, but save the meat. You can use it in other things, making stock, grinding up if you're making any hamburger. There's nothing wrong with the meat or the fat on here, it's just not good in beef jerky. See, that's looking good right there. Down here. Sharp knife really helps when you're doing this. And there's going to be some fat remaining. It's not all going to be gone, so don't worry about getting every tiny little bit. It's mainly the fat on the outside. You're still going to have some marbling inside. That looks pretty good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this in the freezer for 30 minutes. That helps it firm up, and it's really going to help when we slice it into those thinner pieces for jerky making. So I'll see you back here in about 30 minutes. All right, here is our top round that's been in the freezer for half an hour. It's just a little bit firm. It's not frozen. You don't want it solid. You could go a little longer than 30 minutes, but I wouldn't go much longer than that. So what we're gonna do now, we're just gonna take a sharp knife and we're gonna start from one end. And you want the pieces to be as thin as you want them to be. The thicker they are, the longer it's gonna take to dry them out in the smoker, and we're using the electric smoker today. You could do this in the oven. It's a very similar process. You just won't get that smoke flavor you would from the wood chips unless you add something like liquid smoke. So here we go. We're gonna start at this end, and really we're just squaring this end off first. We'll still use that piece, but it's not a great piece. We're just gonna go as thin as possible here. Just something like that. And you want to try and keep them a uniform thickness. That way they'll all cook and dry at about the same pace. And be done about the same time. And we're cutting across the grain here. The grain in this top round runs generally this way. Cutting across the grain is going to result in an easier pull when you bite on that beef jerky. If you cut it long ways with the grain, which some people do, you're going to have more of that sort of tug. And if you like that, that's fine. You can cut with the grain. And these will shrink quite a bit. If you've never made jerky before, that's one of the things you learn very quickly is you have this nice hunk of meat, and as you dry it out in your smoker or your oven, you just see it sort of dwindle away. But that just intensifies the flavor, especially with the marinades you use. We've got a good marinade we're using today. Try and keep it squared up there. If it gets a bow in it or something like that and you try and cut, you're not going to get straight, even pieces, so try and square your end up if you move it. And you may have one or two that are a little bit off, but that's all right. You can see as it sits out here how it's getting a little more loose, and that makes it a little more difficult, but without any time in the freezer, it would be a lot harder to do this. All right, so this is what we're looking for. All our pieces cut generally the same size. I know some of them are probably a little off. It's all right. Got a couple little straggler pieces over here. Those are gonna go in with those trimmings that we had. We'll use those for hamburger or something when we grind stuff up. But now it's time to get this in the marinade. All right, so now we're just gonna transfer our meat into a bowl. You could put this directly into like a Ziploc bag or something. This is actually gonna go in a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator for 3 to 4 hours. If you marinate this, you can marinate it overnight. The longer the better, actually. I just don't have time to do it overnight today. The marinade I'm using today is just a regular teriyaki sauce, and to that I've added about a tablespoon of a ghost pepper maple syrup from Trader Joe's. If you want to kick the heat up, something like that is good. add some chili flakes, anything like that that you want, or just leave it teriyaki or your own favorite marinade. So we're just gonna pour this marinade over this. Get in here, mix it up a bit so everybody gets coated. All right, our top round pieces are ready to go into a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator. And I'll see you back here in about 3 or 4 hours when we get them on the rack and then take them out to the smoker. All right, our beef jerky's been marinating for about 4 hours. It's time to get it out of these Ziploc bags and the marinade and to dry it off a little before we transfer it to the racks and get it out to the smoker. All I'm gonna do is take the pieces out individually. I don't wanna dump the juice here. All right, so I'm just gonna start patting this dry, trying to get off as much of the moisture as possible. It's not gonna be fully dry, that's all right. This just helps the process of drying along once it's in the smoker if you don't put it in there with a ton of liquid. All right, I'm gonna finish drying these pieces off. I'll bring you back when we put them on the racks. All right, here are our top round pieces that have been patted dry. I'm gonna start putting them on the racks now, get them out to the smoker. So I'm just gonna lay these on the racks that are gonna slide right into the smoker. This makes it much easier. If they end up touching a little bit, that's all right, they're gonna shrink. You just don't want them overlapping. This teriyaki marinade smells really good on here. I'm gonna try and get this in with just 2 racks. I think we should be able to do it. A little piece right there, we'll turn that guy. It's gonna set the other rack right on top. Load it up. I don't know. We're gonna make 2 racks, or is it gonna be 3? Just wanna keep good airflow. That's why we don't overlap. Again, if they touch a little bit, some of the pieces, that's not a big a concern. And again, you could do this straight in the oven if you wanted to. We're gonna be running this at about 175 degrees out on the electric smoker, and we are not gonna fit on 2 racks. So I can either try and cram them a little bit, which I think I'm gonna try and do here. Should be fine if I can just fit a few more pieces in here on each rack. Swap these and get a few more on this rack. This one I was a little more generous with space. There we go. 2 racks of beef jerky. Let's get it out to the electric smoker. All right, we've got smoke rolling out of the Charbroil Electric. We're using a mix of hickory and maple today. 2 flavors I really love. You can see that the temperature inside the Charbroil Electric right now is 260. That's just to get the smoke rolling. As soon as we get our meat in there, we're gonna turn it down to 175. And we're gonna try and hold 175 throughout the entire cook. On the electric, holding temperature is pretty simple. Get our smoker opened up. I have my temperature probe on the top rack. We're just adding our jerky pieces on the racks right below that. All right, let's get it closed up and make some jerky. 175, it's gonna hold there, it's gonna go up and down. It'll settle in probably somewhere between the 165 and 185 range for most of the day as it turns on and off. So we have no moisture in the chamber there at all. We're not adding any water in the drip pan, no water pan, nothing like that. We're just gonna let these pieces of top round slowly dry out. It can take anywhere from 4 hours to 7 hours. I don't like my beef jerky super dry. I like there to be just a little bit of softness to it. So my guess in here is gonna be somewhere in the 5 to 6 hour range, but we'll see. We'll be checking it again in a few hours, and I'll bring you back when we check it. Okay, our beef jerky has been in the smoker for 3 hours now. You can see the smoker temp is at 188. As I said, it would range somewhere probably between 165 and 185. So when the element goes on, kicks the temperature up, reaches the temp, starts to come down. It's been right in that 175 degree range, 10 degrees to either side the whole time. So let's see how we're doing. Oh, we are starting to look like jerky. Pull one of these out here. It's immediately clear how much these pieces have shrunk. Let's take a look here and see how we're doing. Grab a piece and check it out. Right here is one of our pieces. Let's see what kind of bend and flex we get. You can see it's bending, it's starting to break, so it's drying out quite well actually. This is pretty good. I'm actually gonna take a little taste of this. Let's see. Good flavor. Still needs to dry out more, but we are definitely getting there. We are on the right track. I think I mentioned I like to dry marinate so it's not too dry. I'm not trying to preserve it for months and months. This will be gone in less than a week. It'll be in the refrigerator. So I want a little bit of the moisture left in it. So I think about 5 hours really, it's gonna be perfect. We'll check it at 4 and see though. You never know, might be done. Let's close this up. Let it keep smoking. We'll check this again in about an hour. All right, smoker's holding good at 179, 180 right there. And it's been a little over 4 hours now. So I'm gonna check these. I have a feeling they may be done. They were pretty close the last time at 3 hours, so these have moved pretty quickly. Let's see how we're doing here. Those are looking really good. Very jerky-like. You can see that. That's exactly how I like it. A little bit of moisture still in there. It's not dried out and snapping, but it definitely is on the verge of that. This is how I like my jerky. It's time to get this in and have a good taste. All right, here is our beef jerky smoked on the electric smoker. I could sit here, tell you lots of things about it, but just look at it. It looks great, made just the way I like it. And I gotta tell you, it's time to taste. So here we go. Nice piece. You can see it breaks apart easily. If you wanted to make this jerky for longer term preservation, you'd have to take it to a drier state, get more of the moisture out of it. You'd probably be going another 3 or 4 hours, maybe even longer. But this is the way I like it, so here we go. Oh man. When I was a kid, beef jerky was my favorite treat. If I saw one of those packages in the store with my parents, I would just beg them for some beef jerky because I just loved it so much. And now, being able to make my own, that's the treat. Great teriyaki flavor, great smoke flavor from that hickory and maple, and just a little hit from that ghost pepper maple syrup. Just a tiny little kick in the background. Not hot by any stretch of the imagination. If you wanted it hot, you could definitely do it by adding more of that ghost pepper maple syrup or anything else you want, red pepper flakes, things like that. I don't like a whole lot of heat in my beef jerky. I like the flavor. Total cook time today was just over 4 hours, which is pretty fast for jerky at about 175 degrees. One of the things that helped today was it's very low humidity, extremely dry today. So we weren't competing with outside conditions in the smoker there with moisture wanting to come in. It was all leaving, and that helped this cook a little quicker. Now, because I didn't dry this out to be preserved, it'll be kept in the refrigerator for a few days. It'll be long gone before 3 or 4 days are out. And that's how I like making batches of beef jerky. Just enough that's gonna last a few days. That way I don't have to dry it out too much for longer term preservation. Nothing wrong with that. This is just the way that I choose to do it. If you wanted to do this in the oven, you completely could. Same thing, low temperature, 165 to 175 degrees. If you wanted smoke flavor, you could add some liquid smoke to the marinade. I would start with a small amount, maybe a half a teaspoon. You can always add more if you think you need more smoke flavor, but you don't want to overpower it with smoke. So if you've never made beef jerky but wanted to, if you have an electric smoker, an oven, you can do this. Very simple procedures. Just give it that marinade, give it some time, you'll end up with this.